It's I'm probably like you guys. I'm still getting accustomed to signing day being in December as opposed to February. And who knows where it's going to be moving forward. I don't even know why we have a February signing day anymore, but I guess we still do. Having said that, I'm excited to announce this group that we have. 21 high school signees. I think it's important for us to build our program with high school football players. That's going to always be the backbone of TCU football is high school players, and in particular, Texas high school players. We signed 18 guys from the state, 9 from DFW. So our area is always going to be very, very important. Being able to recruit your own backyard, I think is always incredibly important to having a successful program in any sport, but in particular football. So I feel good about this group. I really do. I think, for us, the way I see college football, it's changing. The way people recruit is so different than it used to be. I think what you have to do is you have to go and you got to recruit linemen on both sides of the ball, and you got to bring those guys in. You have to develop them and develop those guys. We were able to sign 6 high school offensive linemen. I'm really excited about that. Excited about our defensive linemen that we added to already 2 really strong recruiting classes of defensive linemen. And so I feel really good about where we are, from a lineman perspective. Because again, those are the developmental players in your program, and those are the guys that are the backbone of any successful football program. And so feel really good about those guys. I think they're all different. I think that we have some really athletic tackles, and we have some big physical guards, and we have some guys who can do different things. So really like that group of offensive linemen and defensive linemen as well. I think that the D linemen are athletic. I think you've got big guys in there, you've got physical guys, you've got athletic guys, and so really like the group. I think you can see that we're trying to get a little bit longer at the corner position. We signed two long cornerbacks that are both athletic and can run. Obviously being able to recruit Haas and get him signed was big for our program. He's just a winner, and he's a guy that loves TCU. I think in today's world, that's even more valuable and more critical, is to bring in guys that have a connection to your program and really love the university and kind of what we talk about, bleed purple. I think that's really, really important to the future success of our program. So that's a great thing to build around. Love the running backs. I think that group is a really strong group as well. So I think it's a great overall class. We signed a kicker and a punter. I think we signed the best kicker in high school football in the country, in my opinion. Kyle is strong, big, athletic, has a big leg, incredibly consistent, has a great mentality, all the things you're looking for. And then went to Australia to sign a punter, and really like him and what he can do. And so anyway, like the group, excited about the group. And the great thing about this group is a large number of them graduate early, and a lot of these guys will be here. So I think we anticipate having, my guess is going to be 22 to 25 new players this spring when we roll out there, scholarship players. So, you used to get that big number in the fall that reported, and now it's the spring. So excited about getting these guys in, having a great spring, having a great winter conditioning. Winter conditioning is going to be vital to getting our program back where we want it to go. And so when we get back here to work on January 16th, there's going to be a whole new football team out here. And so excited about that, and building on the players that we already have in our program. So looking forward to getting them here and getting them going.
Coach, I'm not in recruiting trenches.
Right.
But it felt like this was a lot of late momentum.
Yeah.
This class. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so for sure. I think that there was some, and I think that's the that happens kind of when you just put the work in, you kind of keep showing up. And I think our coaching staff did a really good job of working hard, identifying guys, and just kind of sticking with it, you know, just building relationships and sticking with it. And, you know, there's so many changes in college football every day. I mean, it's like you wake up every day and you go, okay, what is our team gonna look like? And, you know, what do our opponents' teams look like? And it just changes so much, with coaches coming and going, with players coming and going. There's just a lot of instability out there, and I think that we got some late momentum, you know, for some different reasons, and we were able to finish with some really good players and get in on some guys that, you know, the relationship kind of won out. So like I said, really fired up about these guys. And then, you know, we were able to announce a lot of transfers today because those guys signed a scholarship agreement, and that's why we're able to announce those transfers. They report basically on January 10th, and start school on the 16th. And so we have a couple of other guys that we anticipate adding to this list that haven't signed a scholarship agreement yet, that are kind of committed to us, but this is a good group. And same thing, you know, when you sat down and you said, okay, what do we need from a transfer standpoint? You know, we felt like, you know, we needed depth on the back end, which we're getting some of, and I think we'll continue to get more of. We needed to add some guys, as we made a change defensively, some guys that could rush the passer. I think we were able to address those guys. And then I think we're able to address the offensive line. You know, again, more depth on the offensive line and guys with experience. Everybody's got a different philosophy when it comes to taking transfers. You know, for us, you know, we've had success taking guys that have played a lot of snaps at different places. You know, those have been the players historically that have been successful for us. Even going back to our time at SMU. You know, we took a guy like a Shane Buechele. You know, we had a pretty good idea what we were getting because he had played so many snaps at Texas. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to, in most cases, not trying to take the third or fourth team guy at some, you know, kind of logo school. You know, our intent is to take guys that have performed. I mean, most of the time we want to evaluate anybody that has fewer than 500 snaps. And so that's kind of been our way of thinking, is if we're bringing in a transfer, let's bring in somebody that has played football, that's been successful. And again, there's exceptions to that. You know, Braylon James was an exception to that because, you know, we had a relationship with him and we recruited him so hard the year before. But in most cases, it's you know, it's guys that are, you know, have played a lot is who we want to bring in.
You talked about, you know, Haas being a winter coach, but I think you guys had 13 guys that were still playing deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was encouraged by that. Yeah, I think that was cool to see, was just, you know, getting guys from winning programs I think is so important, and successful programs. And, you know, I think as you start to, you know, we're going on year 3 now at TCU, and as you start to, you know, figure out where you are, because every university is different, every school is different, every situation is different. You got to kind of, you know, figure out what works in every situation. And I think we're, you know, I think that for TCU, I think recruiting hard-nosed kids that are tough and that are winners, I think is you know, our formula, I think, moving forward. I think it's going to be real important to us. We're going to be very careful about, you know, the character of guys that we bring in, you know, regardless of how highly they are ranked from a recruiting ranking standpoint. I think it's just going to be important for us to bring the right people into our program, especially in today's world. And so I think everybody's still trying to find their niche when it comes to NIL, when it comes to the transfer portal and the combination of the two and how it works and how to manage it. Excuse me, but I think we're headed, you know, to a good place that way.
So with everything you mentioned this earlier, moving kind of to December from February,
Right.
and now with the transfer portal being the way it is, how does that affect how you plan for your spring practices now?
Yeah,
when you know
yeah.
you're going to have such an influx.
It changes everything. I mean, just from a planning standpoint, I mean, it changes everything. I mean, like, this time last year, we were still trying to get ready to play. We were pretty fresh off of a conference championship, getting ready to play in a semifinal game, and quite frankly, we were trying to play catch up, you know what I mean, with all the things that were going on and all the balls in the air, and as you start to look around college football and you see those programs that consistently are in, the college football playoff or in New Year's Day bowl games or whatever the case may be, I mean, you kind of look at the programs, you study them, and they have these huge staffs, and I never understood why. And then we got into that situation last year where it was like, we needed 100 more people than we had just because of what was going on. You know what I mean? All the balls that had to be in the air at the same time, given the recruiting calendar and the way things have changed. And so, was not happy about not being in a bowl game, but that allowed us to really focus on this, on today, and in particular the transfer portal. And so, I felt we were in a good spot. The portal opened on Monday. We had 7 guys on official visits on Tuesday. So we were in a pretty good place in terms of organization and getting a head start and being focused on what we needed to address. And so I think in some ways, as I said earlier, we tried to turn a significant negative, which is not being in the postseason, into a positive, and I think we did the very best that we could under those circumstances, And I think it allowed us to really get in on these guys, and I think address a lot of the needs that we needed to address, because we've talked about this before, but I mean, last year we're getting ready to play Georgia in the national championship game, and we're hosting 5 transfers the week that we're trying to prepare for a national championship, and that's not great business in some ways.
So how do you avoid the burnout, especially now, like summers, right?
Yeah.
The transfer portal window being what it is, like.
Yeah, I mean, there's, go see your shrink, I guess, It's the only way to avoid burnout. Look, what's funny, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, I love the way recruiting is now. I love it. I think it's great for players. I think it's great for coaches. I think it's great for our program. And so, we'll see in a year or two if it is, but I think it's, because I think what you get is, I think that you get to disgruntled people aren't in your program anymore, regardless. And so I think every year you kind of get to start with a clean slate, because if somebody's disgruntled, they typically leave. Now they may get a little disgruntled as the season rolls along, because they're not playing or whatever the case may be, but it seems like you do have a exorcism in some ways every year, where you move on from those folks and you bring in new folks that are excited to be here and see it as a new opportunity. And so I think that football feels different, than it used to. And like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing. It's complicated and messy and takes a lot of time and all that from a coach's perspective, but I think once you kind of get your roster together, I think, it's pretty cool, because, and we're trying to go find guys that really want to be at TCU, and I think when you look at the transfers, 8 of the guys are from Texas. And so in a lot of cases, they went someplace and they're coming home, and they're really excited about coming home, and they know the value of being at home and how important it is and how much it improves the quality of their life. Because all these kids, and I don't blame them, they all kind of chase these big logos, and when it comes to recruiting, and they get there, and again, our deal is to take guys that have been successful at those places. We're not trying to get the cast-offs. We're not looking for the 13 guy that can't play at Oklahoma. I mean, we're looking for guys that have played snaps, and, you know, have played meaningful snaps and have been good in those snaps. But, you know, but those guys do understand the value of being able to play in front of friends and family and people that are invested in them, and you know, and they care about TCU, which makes it fun.
Making a defensive coordinator change so late, you know, so close to the cycle,
Yeah,
did that change how y'all approach
It did a little bit, yeah. You know, I think, yeah, you know, what I had to do is just kind of, you know, get comfortable with my evaluation process, you know, because what happens is, you know, you come off the Oklahoma game, and which was not a good one, and we had a little bit of time to be in the office, and so, you know, I started at that point kind of assessing things, and then that's kind of what you have to do. You have to take some time, and then you got to get really comfortable with, okay, this is, you know, the direction I want to go in, and you don't want to make any rash decisions or emotional decisions, and so that's why it played out a little bit longer than it did. And then like anything else, if you're going to make a change, then you better have a plan, and you better have one that reveals itself pretty quickly. And so, you know, that's just the way it is these days. I think the one thing that was incredibly impressive was we didn't lose any current players when we announced a change. Nobody jumped in the portal, and we didn't lose any recruits. And so, you know, that took a lot of work by a lot of people to make sure that didn't happen. I mean, look, our players love Coach Gillespie. I love Coach Gillespie. It was very difficult to move on. You know, it was very hard for our guys. I mean, they loved him as a person. They believed in him as a coach. There's not anybody that poured any more into those guys than he did and does. You know, and there's nobody that cares about him more than he did. And so, you know, that was hard for our players, but the fact that, you know, they hung around here shows that they love TCU, and they're invested in this program, and they care about each other. And but there was a lot of things that had to happen pretty quickly, you know, once we decided to make that decision. And so it did change a little bit some of the guys that we were on. You know, all of a sudden we were looking for a little bit more of like a rush-in type of player, and some safeties on the back end that maybe did a little bit different things and that kind of thing. But good football players are good football players, and I've always believed that those guys can fit into different schemes. You know, and I think there'll be some current players on our team that will fit in some spots now that maybe they didn't fit in before, and there may be some that don't fit that did before. And so, you know, all that stuff will reveal itself as we get into spring. But I'm excited about Andy. You know, I love his energy. I love he's got a plan. You know, he knows exactly what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. He knows exactly what he's looking for. He's been very decisive in terms of evaluating our players and saying this guy can do this and this guy can do that. And then he spent a lot of time with our current players sitting down with them and saying, you know, here's what you can do, and here's how this is going to benefit you, and here's how you can be productive in this defense. And he did the same thing with the recruits. And so I've been very impressed with his work ethic, his ability to communicate with players, both recruits and current players on our team. You know, I think he's going to be a great addition.